Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. Typically, when I do my reviews, I just do one individual movie at a time, but this one I wanted to make a little bit of a longer video combining a few movies together into one big review video. And these are for some of the recent 2025 releases that I've just recently watched. And so I'm going to do my best to keep this spoiler free, but if I do get into spoiler territory, I will be sure to let you know and put a warning up on the screen. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into some of these reviews. So first off, I finally got a chance to see Bring Her Back, and man, this was something. So this is, of course, the second feature-length film from the Philippou brothers, who just released Talk to Me just a couple years back, which I was quite a big fan of. I was really impressed. I would say, nearly equally impressed with this film. This, as a second feature film, is pretty impressive. And so there is a lot here to appreciate. One of the things now, with this being their second film, you can kind of start seeing patterns emerge from directors and just kind of stylistic similarities. And you start to kind of see some of their strengths and things like that as directors. And so having now made two films, man, these guys have a real talent with actors and with writing compelling characters. They just bring a good kind of just solid, emotional, dramatic weight to their films. And what helps contribute to that is the characters that they write and the performances they get out of the actors. And the performances here in Bring Her Back were very impressive. And they just have a way, too, in getting good performances out of kids and younger actors, which I feel like is not an easy task by any means. And so I think that really shows some of their talent and abilities. But yeah, I was just really impressed all around here with the characters. It's a very dark film, just a very dramatic and intense film, and having the story being centered around these two siblings, which I guess technically they're step siblings, and the tragedy that they've gone through, and now kind of getting into the foster system and things like that. And you've got this older brother who's almost 18 trying to take care of his younger sister and be the mature adult. And man, just all that, it adds just such an element of like reality to the story that really just adds so much of kind of an emotional gut punch to the whole film. So they do just an excellent job with the characters and getting you emotionally invested in them. And they're just people that, man, your heart just goes out to them. Your heart breaks for them. But man, just powerful performances all the way around, especially from the two, younger actors. And then there's the other child actor, the character of Oliver. My goodness, what an incredible performance by this actor. His name is Jonah Wren Phillips, I believe. And honestly, kind of speechless. Just a really powerful performance. And given the fact, too, that not only is this a child performance, but like that he barely has any dialogue. And so this is all emotion and body language and facial expressions and just his countenance and how he moves and how he walks and how he looks. And man, just really impressive. Just creepy, but also, once you kind of start realizing what's going on, again, it carries that emotional weight to it as well. And man, just a really powerful performance. Again, considering that he doesn't really have hardly any dialogue to work with, just the physicality, the emotion that he brings to it was really impressive. And then, of course, Sally Hawkins' performance is, my God, she's probably going to be on the year-end contender list for best performance in a horror film for me. I guess we'll see how the rest of the year plays out, but she's certainly up there as of right now. Man, just the complexity of this character too. The range, the places that she has to go to. This is a character that it doesn't take too long when the two young kids show up where things start feeling a little bit off, and you're kind of on this journey of seeing how far gone is this woman? How far off the deep end has she really gone? And when you start seeing some of the stuff that she does and some of the behavior that she starts displaying, I mean, it's, my goodness. And she just totally owns the role and goes all out. But there's also kind of the emotional element to her character as well. This is a film that deals with similar themes as a film that I actually just recently, not too long ago, watched for the very first time and did a live reaction video on my channel, Pet Sematary. Some very similar themes here. And so I think too, as a parent, if you watch this movie, it might hit a little bit different. You know, it definitely hit me in a spot that not many horror films hit me at, if that makes sense. So anyways, yeah, the performances all the way around are fantastic. The way they handle the horror is also very, very good. I mean, man, just brutal, just bleak. I would love to know where the Philippou brothers started, how they started developing this idea and the concept for this film. Because my goodness, dude, I mean, it's just, it's pretty brutal. It is very dark. It's very upsetting, and it's kind of just relentlessly bleak. It's not a film is good and as effective as I think it is. It's not a film that's going to be an easy one to rewatch by any means, but just very effective. The horror, there's the scene with the knife, and I'll just leave it at that, is, man, just really gnarly and intense. Probably going to be one of the better horror scenes of the year, I would imagine. Really, my only main issue with this has to do with a couple things, kind of a couple of the narrative choices that they make. And again, I don't want to get too specific, but there is some sort of kind of ritualistic type of element that this film brings up. And I feel like it was a little bit underdeveloped. It's kind of handled in sort of a vague way that there's kind of some rules that are established within the reality of the world that they present here, but they're all kind of vague. And so things start happening as the film builds towards the climax that kind of feel a little bit inexplicable, or like they're kind of just a little too vague with sort of the rules of this ritual that it just sort of feels like there's not really much structure to it. And so I wish they would have been a little bit more clear, that there would have been some more structure and development within that certain area. And then also, too, I felt like the ending of the film it's good, but it doesn't quite reach the height or doesn't quite have the impact that I hope for. And I'm going to maybe touch just a little bit on spoilers here, so if you want to avoid this, go ahead and just jump to the timestamp in the video. But my main issue has to do with how Sally Hawkins' character is portrayed at the very end, because this is a woman that, I understand what they were going for, given the trauma and the tragedy that she went through in her past. It was hard for me, despite that, to kind of sympathize with her character. And I felt like that's kind of the tone that they were going for, that they wanted the audience to not just completely, view her as a villain, but sort of sympathize with her and feel bad for her. And I get it. It just didn't quite fully connect for me. And so it wasn't maybe as impactful or satisfying as it could have been. But so anyways, overall, though, still a really solid film and a very solid second effort from the Philippou brothers. Definitely looking forward to seeing what these guys do next. They are absolutely officially on my radar now. I'm very close to an 8 out of 10 for Bring Her Back. So somewhere between 7.5, maybe an 8 out of 10. But yeah, it's a pretty solid film overall. The next film I watched was Sinners. And this is, of course, Ryan Coogler's latest film starring Michael B. Jordan. And man, yeah, this was quite an experience as well. Look, this is a film that, from a purely technical standpoint, I can't really complain or criticize about anything. The directing here all around is pretty phenomenal. I mean, you can point to any sort of technical aspect of the film, and it's kind of flawless. This takes place in the South, Mississippi, I believe, 1932. And everything about it just feels real and true to the time and authentic. You know, the production value, the production design is excellent. So everything from, you know, the set and the buildings, the location, the costuming, and all that stuff is pretty fantastic, very immersive. One of the highlights of this film as well is the music. Just a fantastic musical score. You know, very sort of culturally influenced and, you know, kind of that bluesy soundtrack, but also a little bit of, I feel like in some cases, kind of a modern flair and stuff like that. So it really gives you something unique and different. And I just felt like the music is such a big element and component of this film that, it's just really well done and really stands out as something pretty special. The performances all around are also really solid. I mean, we all knew Michael B. Jordan is great, but this is like another sort of star-making performance as far as I'm concerned. And I was actually a little bit surprised. I pretty much avoided like all the marketing for this film. And so I didn't even know going into this that he played dual roles. And so that was kind of a pleasant surprise for me. And he crushes it. He plays, you know, the twin brothers, Smoke and Stack, and does a phenomenal job and is able to, you know, give them enough kind of, you know, nuance and differences to easily differentiate who is who and things like that. And you feel like you get two totally different yet fully realized characters, which is just really impressive. And so, yeah, I mean, he's pretty captivating. He's pretty captivating and just really shines. Definitely one of the highlights of the film. And so while I can't really complain about anything from a technical standpoint, I do have some issues with it, and they're mainly from kind of a narrative perspective. My criticisms are mainly with the narrative. And so, more specifically though, this film does one of my pet peeves, which is it starts at the ending and then it rewinds and flashes back and then fills in the narrative up to the ending. And I just cannot for the life of me figure out why movies do this. If I thought about it for a little while, I could probably pull out a couple examples of kind of the exception where it does still work. But man, to me, 9.5 times out of 10, starting at the end and then rewinding back and then starting from the beginning, I don't understand the point. To me, it just feels like, well, you've already sort of ruined and spoiled part of your film before we've even got there, right? And so to me, it kind of ruins part of the surprise. It kind of ruins part of the suspense. It just gives stuff away in such a cheap and unearned sort of manner that to me, it's just like, I just don't know why we're doing that. And this film did it. And so a little bit of a complaint there. I wish they would have just started at the beginning and then just told the story. It pretty much all takes place within one day. But anyways, that's the one. The other one is, this is Coogler's first foray into horror. And I feel like you can feel that a little bit. This is a film, like I said, I largely avoided the marketing for it. And so I had an inkling that this was a vampire movie, but I wasn't totally sure about that. And I feel like the film that you get kind of in the first 2/3, and then when it finally kind of turns into a vampire horror film in the last third, they don't fully mesh together for me, maybe as well as they could have. I feel like, you know, you've got a film where they're kind of establishing and building this world where, you know, Michael B. Jordan and his brother are getting ready to start this kind of, you know, nightclub. I think they call it a juke joint, where, you know, where they're gonna have live music and dancing and, you know, a bar and stuff like that. And they'll go around getting people to, you know, get involved. And then at one point, you know, I don't know, roughly halfway through, we just randomly kind of jump cut to Jack O'Connell, and we just find out that he's a vampire. And there's like this 3-minute little scene in the middle of the movie. Then it goes back to Michael B. Jordan. And then all of a sudden at, you know, in the last third, when they're all partying at the club, so to speak, then the vampires show up and, you know, you get all the vampire horror carnage. And to me, I wish that they would have just completely eliminated that scene in the middle of the movie, because I feel like that, it just doesn't really flow narratively. It just feels like a total random out of left field. So to me, I feel like they would have got the best bang for their buck if they would have just waited to reveal that this was a vampire movie until that very end when they start showing up at the club, and it would have been this true kind of genuine surprise and shocking moment. Funnily enough, as I was watching the film, I couldn't help but think of the Robert Rodriguez film From Dusk Till Dawn. I was like, this kind of feels like that. And then, surely enough, that was one of the main inspirations that Coogler had for the film. And I just feel like it would have been more impactful if we would have had no idea that this was a horror or vampire film up until that point at the very end. And so I kind of wish that they would have really, built up to that moment and not almost kind of pre-spoiled it at a couple points along the way. The film, I feel like, doesn't fully mesh as kind of what the first 2/3 of it are about and the last third of it are about. And it almost feels like the vampire story is a bit of a tacked on afterthought. It's like they spent all this time sort of building this story, constructing this world, and then, oh yeah, now here come the vampires, in the last third. And I just feel like it doesn't quite mesh together with as much, impact as I hoped. And so, yeah, that, and I hate even criticizing it, but those are just kind of my honest thoughts, because the rest of the film is seriously phenomenal. And there's so much to appreciate. I have to quickly mention the scene where they're at the club and Sammy, the younger kid, finally gets up there and starts singing the blues and playing his guitar. And then you have this just phenomenal sequence that is going to be, I think, one of the best of the year, where you get this long extended take around the whole, club, and you see the blues, but it also incorporates how it's influenced modern music. And then you see this guy with an electric guitar, and it just brings in all the different cultural sounds and musical styles back in the past and even into the future. And it's sort of this surreal, kind of the world of the movie sort of breaks open, and you get this sort of surreal, otherworldly sort of sequence that I just thought was absolutely fantastic. Very unique and very creative. I loved that whole sequence. But anyways, yeah, those are just kind of some of my, those are my thoughts, and then some of my issues with the film. And also, real quick, there's a sequence at the very end that involves some KKK members. And it is, as entertaining as that scene is to watch, it's another kind of scene that just, it feels sort of tacked on and completely unnecessary. Like, it doesn't really need to be there really at all. And so it just felt like it was kind of there to sort of pad the runtime by another, 5, 6, 7 minutes, but didn't really serve any purpose. And so, yeah. Overall, though, it's still a good film. I still enjoyed it. I would still recommend it. There's definitely a lot to appreciate. I'm just not quite as high on it as I feel like most people are. So for me, I'm going to be between probably 7.5 for Sinners. And then the third film I watched is Final Destination Bloodlines. And this is just a fun one. And this is a franchise that's, kind of hit or miss. There's a few there that are pretty terrible, but there's a couple there that are pretty good for what they are. I mean, we all kind of know what to expect when it comes to these movies, but I had just a good, fun, kind of crazy ride with Bloodlines. And it kind of quenches the thirst. You know what I mean? You know what you're getting. Are you going to get some gnarly kills? Absolutely. Are you going to get just some over-the-top, ridiculous carnage? Absolutely. Are you going to get some good dark humor in there? Absolutely. And the movie delivers. The characters here, of course, aren't anything fantastic, but that's not really the point. As long as you can get me some characters that aren't actively awful and super annoying, I can pretty much get on board. And so the characters here are serviceable enough. You get, of course, kind of the nice sort of bittersweet moment, with Tony Todd's send-off there. Great little scene that kind of hits you in the feels a little bit, but just, really kind of nice way to send off really not only his character, but the man himself as well. So that was definitely a cool moment. And the opening sequence that takes place on what's basically the Space Needle, more or less, is pretty great. Don't know if it's the best opening sequence, but certainly I would say tied for second best. I still think the logging truck scene in Final Destination 2 probably takes the cake, but I really love the bridge scene in Part 5, and I would say this one is as good as the bridge scene. So really great opening sequence there. And yeah, it just kind of gives you what you want. It's just a good time. You get some gnarly kills. There's not really much more to say about it than that. My only thing with this one is, and I'm not sure if they're going to continue to make more of these. Maybe this is really all these movies need to be, but part of me can't help but think like, if they're going to keep making these, the next one would be the 7th one. Are they just going to continually do literally the same exact thing over and over? Is it time to maybe try to expand on the lore or the world a little bit? Is it time to maybe try to, give us some more longer lasting characters maybe? I don't know. But as it sits, I had a fun time with it, and I enjoyed myself for what it was. My favorite film in this franchise before seeing this was Part 5. I would say this one is on par with that one. So I don't know what my official ranking would be, but I would say it is at least on par with Part 5. So yeah, a lot of good fun here. And I'm gonna go 7 out of 10 for Final Destination Bloodlines. So anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are some of the films that I've watched recently, the 2025 releases, and those are my thoughts. So hit me up down below. Let me know what you guys thought of these movies. I've still got a handful that I'm still trying to get to and trying to get caught up in things. Life's been a little busy and hectic lately, but just trying to get caught up on stuff to watch. So anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.